So just as a quick review, qualitative data, we have data that comes in two kinds. Qualitative and quantitative. We're going to talk about both kinds today, but we're going to talk first about qualitative. And keeping in mind that qualitative, your data values are labels. They're basically the names of categories. Like eye color, blue, green, hazel, gray, brown. Or jersey numbers on a football jersey, that's still qualitative data because those numbers don't measure anything. Those numbers are used as a substitute for the player's name. When we get to the quantitative data, those are measurements. And one way of measuring is to count. So measurements are counts. Like how many books, how many miles per gallon do you get driving, how many miles do you drive to and from school, how much money do you have in your wallet, what is your bank account balance. So things that you either measure or count. Heights, weights, distances. Descriptive statistics are the tabular, meaning table, or the graphs, which are pictures, or numerical, we know those mean numbers, that are used to describe data. So for descriptive statistics, we have three different kinds. What we're going to talk about today are going to be the tabular, the tables. And from the tables, we will be able to make graphs, or the pictures. So the tables are going to be what we call a frequency distribution. A frequency distribution is a table essentially that just summarizes the different categories of data and how many fall into each category when you collected them and counted them. So for example, in this frequency distribution, if we were going to make a table, and we are, then we would need two columns for the table. And those two columns would be, it's always done in this order. First column represents the categories. And the second column always represents the counts, which we also refer to as frequency. So if we were going to look at this, this particular example we've got here, it says guests staying at Murata Inn were asked to rate the quality of their accommodations as being excellent, above average, average, below average, or poor. So there's 5 different categories. And this is on the frequency distributions handout that has the data sets on it. So if all you printed was the first one, you need to print both of them. Okay? Because the examples here are not mixed in with the definitions. Now, since what we're looking at is the rating, then the first column in our table is going to represent the ratings. And then the second column is going to be the counts or the frequency. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through here and we're going to count first the ones that are excellent. And we're just going to count how many times that word shows up. So 1. Only one person thought the accommodations were excellent. So then our next category is above average. So we'll count how many people thought they were above average. So here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So that count or frequency would be 9. And then the next category is average. So we'll count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then below average, we have 1, 2, 3, 4. And then the people that rated it as poor will be counted last because that's the lowest rating. And if we did this correctly, then when we get done, we're going to have a sample of 20. So the frequency column should total 20 when we get finished, so we'll see if it does. The last ones we're going to count are 1, 2 ratings of poor. So when I add these up, 1 and 9 is 10, 15, 18, 20. Yes. So the sum of our frequencies is 20 because we had 20 different labels that we were sorting out. Okay? So this really shouldn't be a hard process. Now, if we want to turn this frequency table into relative frequencies, You should remember from all the times we've talked about relative throughout this course, we have an absolute difference and a relative difference. Relative is going to be a decimal or a percent. Absolute difference is numbers, like the absolute difference between excellent and above average is 8. Because there are 8 more above averages than there are excellent. But the relative frequencies are the number in that particular category divided by the total number in all the categories. So it's basically the fraction of the proportion of the total number of data items that belong in a class. So for the class of excellent, there was 1 out of 20. And 1 out of 20 is equal to 5%, or 0.05. So all 3 of those are ways that you can represent it. We will most often use the percentages when we do these. You only find a particular one if it's requested, but the process for finding it is take the number in the category divided by the total of all the categories. In other words, the number of all the pieces of data that you had. So for above average, we have 9 over 20, which is 0.45, which is 45%. All 3 of those are perfectly fine as a representation. And then for this category, that will be 5 over 20, which is 0.25, or 25%. And then this one is 3 over 20, which is 0.15, or 15%. And for this category, it's 2 out of 20, which is 0.10, or 10%. And since this is a percentage, we should realize that once we get through all the categories, we have covered 100% of the data. So if we add 5% plus 45% plus 25% plus 15% plus 10%, then our sum should always be 100% because you've counted all the categories. Now, if I were trying to visualize what this set of data looked like, how it was spread out, there's a couple of things that kind of jump out at me. Is that, that this is the highest category. So a lot of people, maybe not the majority of people, but the largest category of rating is going to be above average because there were 9 people out of the 20 that rated above average. And only 1 person out of 20, which is the lowest category, rated it as excellent. And then all the other people basically rated it somewhere between 1 and 9. So smaller categories. But if I'm trying to visualize how that plays out, looking at a table of numbers is hard for the human mind. In the first place, it's numbers, and the human mind, mostly when they see numbers, they go, oh, numbers, yay. Because it's not easy to just pull information out of numbers. But you can use this table to make what's called graphical representations. And one of those graphical representations is called a pie chart. I'll transfer this information onto this table. And this funny symbol that I just put down there, that's a Greek symbol that means add them all up, or represents the sum. Looks like a backwards 3. So once we've got all that information in there, we have this table, we are going to be able to make something called a, I'm trying to find the one that starts. Here we go. This is our final table. So this adds up to 20. This adds up to 100%. And we want to take this information and make it into maybe a pie chart. Now you've probably seen pie charts before. If you've read a newspaper, watched television, and seen a magazine, especially if it's anything in the news, you'll probably see a pie chart or some other kind of graphical description, because that's what people can understand best. We understand pictures better than we do words or numbers. So what if we wanted to make a pie chart of this information? Well, number one, we're not going to do it by hand. I'll just tell you. It's way too much trouble. But if we wanted to make a pie chart, we're going to use Excel to do this. And I'm going to actually show you how to do this with Excel. But if we look at this pie chart, it shows you pretty quickly that the largest category is above average. It contains 45% of the data. So this whole chunk tells you what the highest number of ratings was, and it's easy to see that comparing it to the rest of the graph. And it's equally easy to see that the smallest category is the category excellent, because it's a whole lot smaller than the above average category and all the others. So we like pictures, and this circle makes it easier to interpret that data. Now this actually is a bar chart. This first one is a pie chart, but the one on the other side here is called a bar chart. And this bar chart shows us the same information. And it just shows us the information in a different way. The tallest bar has a frequency of 9. Sometimes it's also listed as 45% or 0.45, but this one happens to be 9. It's going by the counts. And it tells you that above average is the highest number of ratings. And this tells you that the lowest number of ratings, which once again the frequency shows there is 1, Lowest number of ratings was for the category excellent. So that picture makes it much easier for us to see too. And notice here that every one of these bars goes up on this y-axis, what you'll think of as the y-axis, to its frequency. So that's the next tallest bar. That's the next most frequent category, is the average satisfaction level. This category has 3, and that's why the bar is 3 units tall. And this category is only 2. So its bar is 2 units tall. And sometimes when people make these, they'll actually put the counts at the top of the bar. Just to make it easier to read. But it's not necessary because you've got this scale out here that gives you those same ideas. Okay? Now there's also something called a Pareto chart. I showed you the pie chart and the bar chart here. There's also something called a Pareto chart. And I don't have the example of the Pareto chart here, so I'm going to show you in a minute how to do this in Excel, and we'll arrange it into a Pareto chart. But this one, a Pareto chart is when the bars are in order. Okay? The bars are in specific order. So if this were going to be turned into a Pareto chart, this first bar wouldn't be here. This is 9, 5, 3, 2. This last bar is the least frequent bar, so it would come out here at the end. So if that were a Pareto chart, this bar wouldn't be there, it would be out here at the other end, because then the bars would be in descending order. And you could tell immediately from the Pareto chart that your highest category is above average and your lowest category is excellent. Okay? So that would be the difference in a bar chart and a Pareto chart. And a Pareto chart is simply a bar chart where the bars are ordered highest to lowest. Okay? Now, I'm going to post all of these eventually with the portfolios. I'm going to post a little recording of how to do each one of these, so you'll be able to do your Excel work. But right now, how many people in here have ever worked with Excel? Anybody? Okay, those of you that have will be able to follow me more easily than those that haven't, so y'all be patient with me, okay? We're going to open up the program on your, and now if you've got it on your iPad, you can follow along on your iPad. I have the iPad instructions in the portfolios, and I also have computer instructions. You can do these either way. But since I'm working on the computer up here, I'm going to do it with the computer. So I'm going to go and find my Excel, and it's not on my start menu. So let me see if maybe they gave me an icon. Well, apparently not.
Just go to all programs.
Yeah, I'm going to have to. Just go to all programs. And on mine, Excel is the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1 down. Now yours may not be in the same place, especially if you're at home. you're at home, I doubt that it'll be the 6-1 down. We're gonna go to Excel. And I'm just gonna open up a blank workbook. And it looks like this. And there's all these crazy tabs and things how to do up here. Don't worry about looking at all of them. Just follow along and look at the ones that we're going to do together. The first thing I'm going to have to do if I'm going to create any kind of chart in Excel is I have to have the frequency distribution. So I've got the frequency distribution there. And apparently that's not going to work. Let's see. There, that's the part I need. Although it's kind of blurry. I think we can probably read that though. And now you don't have to do this. Don't worry about setting yours to look like mine. But because I'm trying to show you up here, I'm going to change the font size in this table to make it bigger just so you can see what I'm doing. So the way that I'm going to do that is I'm going to select the whole page. And I'm going to have it not be 11-point font, but I'm going to go up to about 18 so you can see it better. So we want to build this table, and the way we want to build it is we want to first of all have labels for each column. So we're going to put in satisfaction level. And because that didn't all fit in the first column, if you'll put your cursor between the letters A and B, now there's a fast way to do this, but I'm going to show you the slower way first. If you put your cursor there, one thing you can do is you can drag it out to make it wider, however wide you want it. So I want satisfaction level as the label for my first column, and then I want frequency for the second one. And the other way you can make the column to make it fit is you put it between the two columns. Like this time I'm going to be between B and C because my work is in column B. And as soon as I see the little black cross pointing that way, pointing out, that says move this thing out. When you see that, you double click. Click twice. And it will automatically adjust your column to fit whatever that first label is. So what I want to do is I want to copy this table into Excel. So I'm going to type in the labels, excellent, and above average, and average, and below average, and poor, and then I'm going to type in the frequencies: 1, 9, 5, 3, 2. Okay? Oh, they've moved my mouse. cause me to kill myself. So all I've done is copy this frequency table into Excel. Now you can format it and make it look pretty. Right now I'm not worried about doing that. I'm worried that you get just the basics. So if I want to make, for example, a pie chart, then I'm going to go to the Insert button, and I'm going to look for the one that looks like a little piece of pie, a little round circle. And I'm going to click the arrow next to it that points down. That's called a drop-down menu. When I look at that, it gives me several different choices for pie charts. It lets me make something called a donut chart at the bottom. Well, I don't want to make that one. It makes a 3D pie chart, which we're going to avoid, and I'll talk to you a little bit later about why we would avoid that one. We're just going to use the very simplest one, which is this one. Okay? And as soon as I hover my mouse over that one, it actually shows me the pie chart. So I'm going to click on that one, and it made me the pie chart now. Now it made it correct, but it doesn't make it very informative. The problem with it is I have no clue what this thing represents. It says frequency up at the top. Well, I'm not interested in frequency. I want to know, what is this thing telling me about? And what it's telling me about is satisfaction level. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click right there where it says frequency, and it puts a little box around it. And then I'm going to double click to select everything inside of it, and I'm going to type in satisfaction level. And then I'm going to look at these examples of bar charts or pie charts up here and see what other kinds it might make. And you know, the one I really like kind of best is that one right there, because it actually gives me the percentages in each slice. The only bad thing is that that one still doesn't show me the name of the category along with the percentage. I'd rather not have to look over here and try to match up colors. So rather than just deal with the colors, I'm going to go over here where it says Add Chart Element, and I'm going to tell it that I want it's not giving me what I wanted. Okay, well, let's go to quick layout, and I like this a whole lot better. This shows me the percentages in each category, as well as the name of that category. Now, if you mouse over all of these, it'll go to different variations once again. This one gives you counts instead of percentages. But the one I want is the very first one on quick layout. Okay? So quick layout shows me what each one of my categories is, which level of rating it is, and it gives me the percentage that's in that category. Okay? Now there's a lot of other stuff you can do with this. You can change the colors of the chart. You can make the print bigger or smaller. You can put what's called a frame around it. But basically, this is all you have to do to make your pie chart. You don't have to go out and buy a compass and draw a circle and then measure with a protractor to get degrees for each one of these. You just let Excel do the work for you. So we're not going to do any of these charts by hand. We're going to make them in Excel because it's easier. Now, what if I wanted to make that bar chart instead of the pie chart? Well, I can do that too. As long as I'm sitting in an empty cell somewhere, and now at this point, since I've already got this table here, I'm going to blow that window out a little bit. Let's go back to Insert, and I'm going to come over here so it won't insert it on top of what I'm using. Let's go back to Insert, and instead of pie charts, let's make what's called a column or bar chart. That's the one up at the top of the pictures. So if I click the arrow next to it, it again gives me different kinds of choices. It says, do you want your bars to go that way? Do you want them to be three-dimensional? Do you want them to be three-dimensional but going across the page? Well, again, we're going to do the ones at the top, which is always the simplest one. So I'm going to choose the first one. But the problem is, and I'm sure you can see this here, when I go on there, unlike the pie chart, it did not go over there and select the data. It didn't choose the data for me.
Mine actually just switched my cell chart.
If you still had this one highlighted and you went to bar chart, it would do that. Okay? But I want you to keep the pie chart up there, so I want to make a new chart. Now, if you want to make a new one, be sure this little frame that you see around the outside edges of, be sure that you have clicked in an empty cell that's not there. Okay? But since when I do this, I don't see a chart, what I want to do first in this case is I want to choose the table. So I'm going to highlight the table by clicking in the lower cell and dragging up. So I want to choose that whole table. You just click and drag to make it select the table. Put that little frame around it. And click your arrow next to bar chart, and notice over here it made one for me. Okay, it's pretty smart. It even knew how to sort it out. So once again, make sure everybody knows how to do this. Click in an empty cell so that nothing is selected. And then go over and click satisfaction level, drag over to frequency and down until you select the whole table. And it says there's already data here. Do I want to replace it? No, I don't. So I'm going to select the table. All you do is click in one cell and drag until you get the whole table selected. Then click the arrow next to the bar chart picture and choose the very first one because that's the simplest one. And simple is always better. So again, I'm going to drag it over here to the side. I'm going to make it bigger. And I want to change frequency to tell me what this is the frequencies of. So I click on frequency and then double click and type in satisfaction level. And then I have all my bars here, and as I had before, it tells me how tall each bar is and what the categories are. Okay, so there's my bar chart. And I don't need to do anything else to it. Now I told you about a Pareto chart, and I said a Pareto chart is an ordered bar chart. In order to have an ordered bar chart, what I'm going to do is I'm going to click and drag back on the table. Just select the whole table. And then go over here at the top on the corner next to the little magnifying glass where it says sort and filter. There's a little tiny down pointing arrow after the word filter. Click that little arrow. And then if I tell it to sort A to Z, it sorted A to Z, but unfortunately what it did was it sorted it into alphabetical order, which was not what I wanted. So that's not really what we were after. So what we're going to have to do is something called a custom sort. And I don't want it to sort by satisfaction level. I want it to sort by frequency. And I don't want it sorted smallest to largest. I want it sorted largest to smallest. So I changed both of those. So remember, the way you get here is you click on A to Z, click the arrow and choose custom sort. Tell it that you want it to sort by the frequencies. And you want it sorted in from largest to smallest, not smallest to largest. Tell it OK. And notice that once it sorted it, it also changed the order of the chart that I'd already made from it. Because this chart is tied to that data table. So if you change the table, it changes the chart. Okay? This is a Pareto chart. The difference in a Pareto chart and a bar chart is that the Pareto chart has the highest bar first and they go from descending order after that. These are used in quality control in all kinds of industries. Okay? Now, isn't this a lot better than having to haul out a ruler and graph paper and do all this by hand? We would spend half the class period just explaining how to do it. So, that's how we use Excel to do that problem. So let's look at another example. Because once we've got the basics down, all of this, the rest of this is going to be really easy to do. So here we've got a frequency distribution about M&Ms. And it says, what is your favorite color of M&M? They've asked people this and they recorded their answers in this table. But it's not really informative. If I were to ask you, what color do people like best on M&Ms? Could you tell just by looking at that? I couldn't. And I was a statistician. That was my profession before teaching. So raw data is not very informative. You want to start organizing it and looking at it so that you can tell things about it. So in order to do that, we're going to do the same thing we did a minute ago. We're going to take this and we're going to make it into a frequency distribution, just like we did before. So I'm going to go through, and since I don't know what order the colors are going to come out in, I'm just going to put them in the order that I see them. So the first color I'm going to count is red. And I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 red ones. So there are 6 red. And let's see, I'll color code this a little bit here. Next one will count yellow. There's 1, 2, 3, 4. So there's 4 yellow ones. And then we have blue ones. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I see 8 blue ones. And then we've got brown ones. I don't think I have a brown marker. Nope. So I guess we'll call that one purple. One, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I see 5 brown ones. And then the next one is green. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 green ones. And the only one that's left is orange. So I see 1, 2 orange ones. So there's my frequency chart. And now that I have my frequency chart, I can use them. I can use this frequency chart just exactly like I used Excel before. I can use Excel to make graphs of my M&M's colors. And those graphs would look like this. So here I have a pie chart of the M&M's colors, and I have a Pareto chart of the M&M's colors. Get a little better view of the pie chart. So I can see here pretty quickly that 27% of people preferred the blue M&Ms. And almost the same number of people that liked red like brown, but just a few less liked brown. Because there's only 17% brown compared to 20% for red. And I notice here that they must not have done this in Tennessee, because orange, that or maybe they asked the ETSU people instead of the UT people, that orange is the smallest category at only 6%. And then in the Pareto chart, I notice that blue was the highest because that makes sense. That was the largest category. Red was the next largest. Brown is the next largest, closely followed by, actually it should be exactly the same for green, because green and brown both have the same percentages. 17%. So green and brown's bars have the same height. And then yellow is the next category and orange is the last category. So there's my Pareto chart. Now to kind of wrap up a little bit on some terminology here, on the last page of your notes, we have some definitions of what these various labels are. So your title or your caption is actually the title of the chart. You have something called a vertical scale. Your vertical scale, vertical is up and down. So your vertical scale, the numbers along the vertical axis have to indicate the scale, and it has to be to scale. You can't have 1, 9, 15, 20 and make all of those increments the same. It has to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay? So it's important that these be to scale. And it needs to say what that actually represents. Does it represent number, or, you know, as in counts, or does it represent relative frequency, which is either decimals or percents? Your horizontal scale should indicate the various categories. And this is for qualitative data. We'll have these similar charts in quantitative data. So this should tell you what the categories are. Now, I did not do this on the one that I showed you how to do. It will be in the other recording I'm going to do. But you should also say what those categories are representations of. In this case, it's color. And the last thing is called a legend. To show you the legend, I'm going to go back. Notice that I changed this to show the labels in the pie chart. And these are actually labeled along the bottom axis. If I go back to the one that I did first, okay, where's my... If I go back here to the layout, this is a layout with a legend. I'm going to drag this up pretty big so you can see it better. So this is this part right here that I just put the box around. That's called the legend. I usually don't use a legend, and I would prefer that you don't use a legend. I would rather have the labels themselves be on the pie chart. Rather than have to look up here and match up colors, like I said before, I'd rather be able to look at it like that and be able to read right off the chart what the various categories are. The same thing here. I can make this chart looking for the one that has the legend on it. Okay, this one has, this is the legend, that's the legend, both of those have the legend. But if you look, it's not terribly helpful for me to see that legend is frequency. So it didn't tell me anything about what I wanted to know on the chart. So I don't want to see the legends. Don't ever pick anything for your charts that has a legend. Have it actually label the chart pieces itself. So, I don't want to do the portfolio yet. We are ready to talk about quantitative graphs. Which is the next set. And you do incidentally have one more example on this handout. This handout that has the data on it, this actually goes with both of these. So you don't need another one. So now we'll talk about quantitative data. Now, quantitative means actual numbers. Numbers that measure something or count something. Now our frequency distribution is going to be exactly the same as it would be for qualitative data, except that you don't necessarily want a category for every single different number. For example, on the data set that we're going to work with here for our example, it would not be helpful to have a table that lists everybody that made an 87 and everybody that made an 80 and everybody that made 51 and everybody that made 59. That would not be helpful to me. Because if you notice here, very few of these categories actually repeat. So I'd have a whole bunch of different labels and each one of them would show up once or twice. That wouldn't help me very much. So in order to make the frequency table for this, the first column is going to be what's called classes or bins. And Excel calls it bins. Now, we don't use the word bin very often in this, especially in the South, but in this country at all, we don't use the word bin for a great many things. A bin is the same thing as a box or a container. Okay, if you think of it as a box or a container, then basically what we have is we're going to sort these numbers into boxes that contain groups of numbers. The second column, again, is going to be frequency. So that's not any different from before. Relative frequency is the fraction or proportion that falls in each bin, just like it was with the counts for the categories. We also have something called the cumulative frequency, which basically adds the frequencies up as we go down the table. I'll show you how to do that. And then we're going to use the table once we've made it to make graphical representations, which are going to be called histograms, line charts, and time series charts. The first one will be histograms. So remember, we're working with quantitative data now. So here's our set of data for the exam scores. And what we want to do with the exam scores is we want to come up with some kind of a system that will give me equally spaced categories so that I can tell what proportion falls into each category. So just for convenience sake, I chose the categories to go from 90 to 99, 80 to 89, 70 to 79, 60 to 69, 50 to 59, and 40 to 49. And this could just as easily have been the 90 at the top and the 40 at the bottom. But notice they do have to be in order. And the main thing I want you to notice here is that there are 10 different numbers that could fall in that category. That category represents 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, and 49, but not 50. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There are 10 possible values that will go in that first category. Any of these numbers will fall in there. And each one of these categories always contains 10 different possibilities. Now, once we put them into that bin, we're not going to know what the exact number is anymore. We just know that it's one of the numbers that goes in that bin. That's the thing to remember. So going through this chart, there's 2 or 3 different ways you can actually count this. You can go through like we did before and just mark off numbers as you go. And that's actually the choice that I'm going to make. I'm going to begin with the 80s. So I'm going to work on the bin that has the scores that are in the 80s. So I'm working on this bin. And all the values out of my exam scores that fall in the 80s are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, thank you, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Now, if you're afraid that you're going to miss one, and I just about did, if I hadn't been listening, I would have missed that one. What you can do is you can do something called tally marks. As you go through, when you see the 87, you mark it out and put a tally mark here. And then you see the 80, you mark it out and put a tally mark. And then when you see 82, you mark it out and you put a tally mark. And then when you see another 82, you mark it out, put a tally mark, and then 83, cross off the first 5. And then a tally mark for 84, one for 88, one for 82, one for 80, one for 84, one for 87, and one for 86 would tell me that right now I've got 12. But in case I missed one, I won't write that 12 down, I'll just leave the tally marks there. That way if I missed one and I catch it later, I can add another tally mark. So going through and doing the same thing, I'm going to do the categories of the 50s next because that's the next number that comes up. So I'm going to work on this category. So I've got 51, 59, 58, 58, and 52. Now I think that total category is 5, but I'm going to wait till the end and make sure that I didn't leave out any 50s as I go back through again. So then the next category, I'll go through the 60s. And I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I don't see any more. So I'll, again, leave off my tally marks and keep on going. And now I'll do the 90s. So I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and I'm pretty sure that's right too, but again, I'm going to wait till all the way through and make sure that I've got everything. And let's go for the 70s. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then if I did this right, the only thing left would be the 40s. So everything else, when I'm finished, everything should be marked out. So go down each column, looking for 40s. I find 1 right there. But I don't see any more. So I'm going to take it that that means that there was 1 number in the 40s. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in the 50s. 5 in the 60s. 6 in the 70s, and now I know for sure I did the 80s right. That's 12. And then 7 in the 90s. And then just to be sure, I have 1, 2, 3, 4 in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 columns. So that means I have 36 values. So that means this had better add up to 36. So 1 plus 5 is 6. 6 and 5 is 11. 11 and 16 is 17. 18, 19, 29. And 7 is, in fact, 36. So I know I didn't miss any. That way I have a way to back up myself. I added it up and it came to 36. I know there's 36 numbers and I can look at my numbers and see that I've marked them all out. So I didn't miss any. So now I've got my frequency table. And it looks like this. Now, if I'm trying to analyze how my class is doing, if this were my exam scores, I'd look at that and go, I have no clue how they're doing. But if I look at this, I immediately see that 12 out of my class, that's a third of my class, made in the 80s. So 12 of my students made B's. That's good. A total of 19 students made A's or B's because 7 students made A's. I did have some students that didn't do as well as I had hoped. There's 11 of them that, you know, I need to get with and figure out what's going on with them. But it looks like, you know, 11 of them out of the 36 didn't do well. But that also means that 15 out of 36, 15 did very well. They made A's, B's, and C's. So that's what I want to see. And again, it would be easier to really analyze this if I made charts. So the chart that I'm going to make from this data first of all, I'm going to make a histogram. See if I can get it all on there. So here's my histogram. And notice that I've got all the elements that I want to have for my chart. I know that my chart is about exam scores. I know that the vertical axis is frequency. And notice this goes 0, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14. Those are all even. Big deal that it has to start at 0. It could be deceptive if it didn't start at 0. And I noticed that my horizontal category is test scores. And then under each bar here, I have the labels for that bin or that category. Now the thing to remember here, compare this chart, if you will, you can draw them on, you can sketch them on your practice, but doing them in Excel is the way we're going to do them. Makes it much easier. Let's see if I can figure out how to get these side by side. Okay. Now that's a Pareto chart, which is just a bar chart with the bars in order. And this is a histogram. Okay? Tell me what you see between those two that's different. What's the only thing that's really different between this and this?
Get exact numbers for the chart.
That's right. You get exact numbers because they each go with a category. What about the bars themselves? What's different about the bars?
Touching.
They're touching. Histogram bars must touch. They have to touch. And the reason they have to touch each other is because the first bin, for example, contains one number. Now looking at that bar, do I know what that actual score was? No, I know it was somewhere in the 40s. So it could have been 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, 49. I don't know what actually it was, but I do know that once I get to that line right there, anything that goes past that line goes into the next chart, into the next bar. Because after 49 comes 50. Okay? So scores are in the 40s until the next one jumps into the 50s. That's why the bars touch. There's not anything between 49 and 50. There is no number in between there. There are decimals, but there is no whole counting number between 49 and 50. Okay? So that's why they touch. The bars have to touch. Now we're also, and I'm going to show you how to do this in Excel too, we also make something called a line chart. If you notice, the general shape of that line chart is about the same as if I went from the middle of the first bar to the middle of the second bar, to the middle of the third bar, to the middle of the fourth bar, to the middle of the fifth category, and to the middle of the last category. So I go up, which is this part, and then I go straight because these two are the same height, and that's why this line stays level. But then it climbs a little bit, which is this part. And then it jumps up to the top of that bar. So this peak corresponds to the tallest bar. And then it drops back down, which is that one. So what the line chart does is it gives me not quite as clear a picture, maybe. I think most people prefer this kind of a chart to this one. But it tells me basically there's not very many here, but as the grades went higher, my number of people in those categories also went higher. So just like we did with qualitative data, we can do quantitative data looking at relative frequency. We've already counted, and we know that there are 36 scores. So that means 1 out of 36 was in the 40s. 5 out of 36 were in the 50s, and 5 out of 36 in the 60s. 6 out of 36 were in the 70s. 12 out of 36 was in the 80s, and 7 out of 36 was in the 90s. And I'll convert those, grab my calculator here. So 1 divided by 36 is 0.02, or 2.8%. And then 13.9%. And that's the same for this one. And 16.7%. (33.3%). And 19.4%. And again, just like this is supposed to add up to 36, this should add up to 100%. But if you actually add these up, you may find that it either adds up to 99.9% or 100.1%, because on every one of these we've rounded to 1/10, so it could be off by a tenth.
If you still click over, you're not writing the percents right. They want them wrote as 0.028.
Okay, that is the right percentages. I just didn't put the decimals in.
Okay.
Because you could see the decimals over here, as I did those
So
on the
do you
calculator.
want us to write it like that, or how it is on this frequency distribution?
You're gonna have to read the problem to figure it out, but basically what happens is going from the fraction to the percentage, you have to come up with the decimal. So you should be able to do either one.
Okay.
I'll specify which one I want.
Okay.
Now the one that's probably not quite as obvious, but it's not hard to do once you see what it is is the cumulative frequency. The word cumulative comes from the word accumulate. When you accumulate, you add things as you go along. So what we're going to do here is the cumulative frequency. There was only one in that first category. But if I wanted to know how many people in the whole class made less than 59, or 59 or less, well, that would be a total of 6 people. So the cumulative frequency for the second class would be 6. That 6 tells me that 6 people fell in this class or the one below it. Or in this case, the one above it, even though that's kind of relative to what the table is. And then if I want to know how many people made 69 or less, I would add another 5. 5 plus 6 would be 11 for the cumulative frequency. And then for the people that made 79 or less, I would add another 6. So 11 plus 6 is 17. And if I go, how many people made 89 or less, which at this point you can see that that's becoming kind of useless information. 89 or less was everybody but these 7 people here. So 17 plus 12 would be 29. And by the time I get to 99, well, all 36 of my students made 99 or less. So what you're doing is you're just adding your frequencies up as you go down to get cumulative. So you add your frequencies as you go down that column. So as Katie pointed out, the relative frequency here is given as a decimal, which is correct, but it can also be a fraction or a percent. It just depends on which way that you're told to do it. And since we've worked with percentages so much, I think it makes sense for us to do mostly percentages unless you're told otherwise. And then these are just how do you do the cumulative frequencies. So working from here, let's look at how you would do these in Excel. So I'm going to add a clean sheet to my, well, no, actually I'm not. I'm just going to keep that one because I've already got it set up the way I want it. I'll just scroll down the page some. So what I'm going to do here then is I'm going to do exam scores and frequency. And I'm going to type in categories for the exam scores. So my first set of exam scores is I'm going to type in the bins, my different exam score bins. Then I'm going to type in the frequencies. And the first thing that I'm gonna make with this table, and this is a little bit more complicated, I will warn you. It's a little bit more complicated to make this one, because we have to make more changes. We're gonna start out the same way that we did with making a bar chart. We're gonna choose the bar chart. Actually, wait, let's see. No, that's a pivot chart. I'm looking to see if this one has the easy way to do it. Let's go here where it says histogram. So, instead of doing the column or bar chart, come diagonally down to the second column and choose the one that says insert statistic chart and click the arrow, and the first one is a histogram. Okay? So we're going to choose histogram. Now, the problem with what I've got there, does it look anything like what we might have expected it to look like, as in the one I showed you? No. No, that's a problem. So what we want to do, see if I can remember where this is first. Okay, we're going to come over here where it says select data. And if you'll look carefully, when you go to select data, and that's on your design tab, when you go to select data, notice that what it has is it's got the legend entries as the frequency, which is not what we wanted. And it says the horizontal or category axes should be these, and yet somehow it's not doing those right. It's picking them out right, but it's not doing them right. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to back out of that. I'll figure out how to do that on the new version of Excel and show you, but for right now I'm going to show you the way that I know how to do it. So we're not going to do the histogram. We're going to start with a bar chart, because the bar chart started us off with the right labels.
I actually kind of figured out how to get it to the normal histogram. I'm going to show you.
Yes. No, don't do a couple of these. Oh, it's because you have.
I did all the stuff later, but,
Okay.
so what I did was I went to insert and I went to histogram,
Okay.
and it won't show it. Here, so I showed that. Instead of picking that, what I did was pick the one that had the line, and then I right click on it, change chart type, and for whatever reason it didn't open in here.
Ah,
I don't know.
yeah, that's weird.
It is weird.
Okay. This is the newest version and I'm still playing with it. Okay. Let's go back step one more time. So Orlando showed me how to do this. Everybody watch carefully. You do select your table, although I think you can ignore the table. You want to go to insert, point at the picture of the histogram, choose the arrow next to it. Instead of picking the first one,
But you do have to select that.
yeah, you do have to select the data, but No, you can't do it afterwards either, so let me delete that. Okay, select your data. Go to Insert. Choose your histogram picture. Pick the arrow and pick the one that has the line on it. Pick the second one, not the first one. Now, once you pick that one, you go to Change Chart Type and pick the first one and it does it right. Have no idea why. Wait.
You have to select it.
Yeah, tell it okay. Okay. So there's my histogram. Sort of. And the reason I say sort of is it's the right shape, but the chart title, I don't want the chart title to be chart title. I want it to be exam scores. And then you can also, on your design, where it says add chart elements, you can add axis titles. So what I want is this to say scores. And then the vertical axis, even though I could just call that frequency, I'm going to call that number of students, because that's the number of students that made that score. Okay? So there's your histogram. Now, if you want a line chart, do the same thing. Select your table, insert, and that's not the one I want. And you want a 2D line chart. And again, you would want to make the same changes that we made a minute ago. You would want to change the chart title to exam scores. And your horizontal axis would be scores. And your vertical axis would be number of students. So there's your line chart. Okay? Now, the only one we haven't done is time series. And time series is what you're going to do in your portfolio. I will post an example of a time series chart for you. But so that you know where you can already see one. think this is the one. No, that's Pi, Bar, and Pareto charts. I don't think there's a time series on there. Okay, there is on page 20 of the instructions for Portfolio 9. It shows you how to make a time series chart. Now, the directions that we did today in class don't match the directions in this handout for making the histogram. The way that we did it in class is a lot shorter way to do it, so go back and look at the video of how we did it. And then I'll do another video of just some examples to help walk you through those. But your time series chart's right here. So we can take that data and I'll show you how to make a time series. In fact, I'll walk through this whole handout for you. I'll put a video up there that walks through that when we get out of class today. So while I'm here, since I noticed the due date, let's see, tomorrow's the 20th. Let's give you till Friday on this one, at least. Actually, there's no reason I can't give you a Monday. So, that way if you have questions, you can ask in class on Monday.
So on these graphs, I mean, I don't know how to turn it home. Can I just take like a screenshot and post it in Shelby?
No, I'm going to show you how to do it here in a second, okay? When you're ready, are you doing them on the iPad or are you doing them on the laptop? Okay, if you're doing them on the laptop, what you do, for everybody that needs to know how to do this, if you're going to do this on the laptop, okay, if you're doing it on your laptop, go to File, go to Print, and if you have a newer version, you should see something about PDF on here. If you don't see that, then go to Save As. Pick the place that you want to save it. Tell yourself what the file name is. I'm just going to call this Sample. And then where it says Excel Workbook, click where it says Excel Workbook and scroll down toward the bottom where it says PDF. Save it as a PDF. So this is going to be what you actually post for me. There's the first one. Now these are not paged very well because I blew them up, remember? So you're going to want to actually look at it and make sure what it looks like when you save it. But you can save it as a PDF and then post that PDF. Now if you're on the iPad, you can take screenshots, or I think you can actually, if you're doing Excel on the iPad, I think you can do the same thing I just did, have it save as a PDF. And then you can post the PDF.
You can actually just drop the Excel file. That's what I just...
Let me look at yours, because I'm not positive if you just drop the Excel file that I can actually open it up in Shelby. I may be able to. Let's see. Which one did you do?
3.2 and 3.3.
Yeah.
Oh, it's
You dropped it there, but I can't see it.
okay.
Can you download it?
I could download it, but I can't see it right there to grade it right there. That's the only hitch. So yeah, I could download it
That's it.
and open it. And then I could make comments on that and then load it back up. So it would work.
Yeah, that's,
Where do you want us to put our homework? How can we save it to PDF file or?
Just put it on the folder and show me that it goes with. Like when you did your lessons and notes for today, let's see, I think the practice problems are also on here. So not on the qualitative, though, I think you want to put it on 3.3. Yeah, you want to put that on 3.3. Okay?
How would you go about doing this?
Since what we did was here, you can do your handwritten notes here, or you could, actually all we were doing here was making frequency distribution, so yeah, you do your handwritten notes there. The portfolios, though, have their own folder.
So there's nothing to do for 3.2, just 3.3.
Yeah, just 3.3, be sure and show me how you made your frequency distribution, so, and I mean, we did them in class, so hopefully you got them right. That's what I'll base your grade on. Okay? Before class next time, so you'll be prepared, we will be doing 3.4 and 3.5 next time. And I will also have your exams. As soon as I get them graded, I'll do your grade report, so you won't get your exam back, but at least you'll know how you did. Anybody? Yes. I think I moved them to Monday. Well, I thought I did. I'll do it now. Try it again. Wait, no, not that. You're welcome.
Thought she had that baby the other day, but here.
Now, I knew where she was. You don't have to go to your other class? Okay. Yeah, if you'll just go ahead and take a break for a couple of minutes, give me a chance to get all my stuff together. And my office is on the second floor of that building right behind us. Just go out the door downstairs and right straight in and up the steps. My office is on that side, is the best way I can explain it. When you get to the top, you'll see what I mean. There's offices on this side, but there's a hallway that goes down the other side. It's, 240, F-240. I'll be over there in a minute, so if you get lost, just hang out at the top of the steps.
If you walk all the way around, you'll eventually find it.
Yeah.
I should have got you.
Actually, I moved my office. Wrong place.
Oh, I'm sorry. There you go. I forgot. Gotta get that baby. Let go. I know we got a no cow about to pop, and we got a. I believe she's gonna have twins.
Oh, my goodness.
Waiting to come in the barn door. I've got it fixed. We know they've got that rub to keep the flies off of them.
Mm-hmm.
That's all she do is fit through her.
Oh, gosh.
She'll get
Bless
right
her
there
heart.
and she'll go.
Bless her heart.
No cow. It's the wood, I mean, she's old. It's the one my son used to show in 4-H. She's an old cow.